So much for being here with us this morning. This is the second week of our Recommission series, our global mission series that we're calling Recommission, where we're having several weeks where we are focusing and refocusing and recommitting to the Great Commission. And as we do this over these several weeks, we have quite a few things going on. We're hearing from several of our missionary partners that we partner with in doing the work of Christ around the world. Last week, we were blessed to be hearing from Jeff and Julie and hearing about the many ways that God is at work in their ministry. We got to hear from them as part of our Sunday morning service. We got to hear from them as part of our all-church luncheon. Several small groups had the opportunity to get together with them as well and hear about what God is doing in their midst. Next week, we're going to have Bold Hope and representatives from Bold Hope come out and share with us about what God is doing in their ministry. The week after that, we get to hear from Tim and Jill Reber about how God has been using them in their work with African Inland Mission. And then in our final week of our series, we have the Shaws also serving with African Inland Mission that are going to be with us. But as you know, if you've been here at Grace for a period of time, you know we do things a little bit differently on Communion Sundays. And we generally tend to take a break from what our normal teaching series is, and we like to hear from people within our own church about what God is doing in their lives. And that's what we wanted to do as part of our Recommission series, as part of this series as well for our Communion Sunday. We wanted to hear from people within our own church. Another way that we are a part of global missions in the world and the work of Christ and the Great Commission in the world, in addition to partnering with our long-term missionaries, is short-term missions. We have several people, really more than several, like 20, 30 people at least within our congregation here, who at some point in their lives have been involved in some form of short-term missions. Short-term missions is when people who aren't full-time missionaries, aren't full-time professional, vocational missionaries, take time and partner with either an organization or a partner missionary to serve as part of a project to help boost and bolster the work that God is doing through those missionaries. So this morning we have a special treat. We're going to hear from a panel of people within our own church who have taken advantage of opportunities to be involved in short-term missions in a variety of ways, both connected with Grace and also connected with other organizations that they've been a part of throughout their lives. I'm going to invite them to come on up here. Kalina Smith, Jess Christensen, Andrew Rodriguez, and Nancy Sampson. They're going to come on up and take a seat. We're going to have our little morning show with Grace Community Church up here. Who gets what seat? So basically, we have some questions that I've asked each of them to kind of be thinking about ahead of this time together, to share with you about how God has used them in short-term missions, how they saw God work throughout their involvement in short-term missions, and also how they have seen the Great Commission expand throughout their involvement in short-term missions. So thank you guys for being here with us this morning. I know literally the hot seats up here. But all of these folks up here have been involved in short-term missions in a variety of ways. So I wanted to first start out with just letting them talk a little bit about just giving kind of like a little bit of information on what have been the types of short-term missions experiences that you've been able to be a part of. So I'm going to throw it over to whoever wants to go first. Yes, that's the mic. So grab that mic and you can pass that around. Kel got volunteered as the first person to answer this question.
Okay, so my short-term missions experience started when, here at Grace. And so there were two student missions trips. So we took our youth group students. One was in West Virginia, where we painted a home and repaired a home for a wonderful older lady in the community. Another one was we took a group of students to Virginia, and we worked in many different locations there. And my time there, I spent working for medical missions, and basically we were sorting and packing up supplies for them. Then we took a a group of students to a Native American reservation in South Dakota, and we painted homes and we ran a kids ministry there. A Native American trip, another missions trip to a Native American reservation in Arizona, and this time we worked on the grounds of a school, kind of doing a lot of yard work type of things and sorting mulch and poop. Was a few days of work.
It's glamorous.
It was wonderful. Then we took a Grace Missions trip to Haiti in 2016, and I actually helped lay a laminate floor, which I'd never done before, so that was I was great at it, but it was a lot of fun. And then in 2017, again to Haiti, where we worked, we ran a kids program and did a kids feeding program there and did various other jobs. In 2019, a trip to Belize, where we worked, we did a kids program, and Jess and I were in charge of crafts for that one. And then a missions trip with students. So I work at Doc Mennonite Academy, and 1 week every school year we take a group of kids on different types of, it's called mini term, and they can do many, many different things. And so I've led a couple missions trips during that time, one to Jamaica with Bold Hope, and then another one to the Dominican Republic with Bold Hope again. And then lastly, this past summer, again to Belize.
I was trying to think when I started. I think it was middle school I started going on short-term missions trips, and I did with an organization called Gospel Ministries to Children, and we did backyard Bible clubs. I did that for 5 or 6 years in middle school and high school. And then I traveled with my family quite a bit. My dad was a pastor, so we traveled a bit going on different missions trips with my family and then also with my youth group. And then here at Grace, I've gotten to do one youth missions trip to Arizona, and then 2 with Bold Hope. We went to Haiti and then to Belize.
My experience in short-term missions is Haiti in 2016 and 17, and Belize in 2019 and 23. In Haiti, we mainly worked with the kids of the area in a Bible school. We helped the kids make crafts, play sports and other games, sang, and taught them Bible stories. It was fun to hang out with them and be a little bit silly. Past summer, I participated in the Belize trip. We played basketball, had fun helping them finish decorating their town's basketball court. Kids of all age groups play on the court, and it was great to see their joy in their eyes when they saw the finished product. The basketball program in their area is a positive place for kids of all ages to spend their time.
So they all came prepared with their notes. I don't have anything. I did the missions trip this past year with Nancy. I did notice you looked at me when you mentioned basketball. So. But no, I got to go with my boys, and just like Nancy was saying, to be able to refurbish the basketball court and to see their response to it was pretty incredible. So.
Thanks, Az. So being a part of any of these projects, it's not an easy thing. It takes sacrifice. Obviously, the most obvious sacrifice is you're giving up your time, you're giving up your vacation time, you're getting away from work, you're taking time away from your families, or your family is traveling with you, which has its rewards and sacrifices. There's good things and there's hardships about that as well. But it's a lot. It's not just like a simple thing to decide to be a part of one of these projects, and then to go through the raising of support, and then getting there. You're often in a strange place. Often a lot of these places where we didn't speak the language and had to learn and need translation, and it's uncomfortable in a lot of ways. So knowing that, like, what moved you to want to be a part of this project? How did God work in you to give you the desire to want to be a part of these projects?
I have a script. Earlier on, I really wanted our kids to have the experience of being in a different country and culture and being able to serve other people their age and give them a feel for missions, and to see where God might lead them in their own lives. And it was a joy to see my kids get involved, and then it's just great to interact with people of different cultures and knowing that we're all serving the same God. It was really kind of incredible.
For me, it was more health and the kids' ages. be able to get to that point. But just this past year, just thinking through wanting to serve alongside with them, I thought was I like that idea of families being able to come. So to be able to do that with them was pretty neat to see, at least for me, to see the boys kind of take those steps forward and kind of sit back and watch them serve in ways that were unique to them, sit and talk with the missionaries and want to get to just different experiences that they would probably never really be able to get if we didn't go. And to kind of watch them take those steps forward was kind of just neat. That there's that neat aspect of being a part of a family trip. That's really awesome. Instead of just coming back and relaying and saying, hey, you can go do that one day, you kind of got to watch them do the same thing. So
I think each of them that I went on had a different reason. When I was younger, I was kind of up for anything and excited to go and use my gifts and work with kids. That's what I enjoyed doing. And then when we went to Arizona, that one was, I went as a youth leader, and it was really cool to be able to go with these girls that I had spent so much time with and get to watch them serve. And then, kind of like they both said, once my kids got a little bit older, it was really, really fun to go with them and see them use their gifts and be able to connect with the people that were there in a very different way than we were able to. I think Jakey was 8 and Caleb was 10 when we went to Belize. So he was able to kind of jump in and make relationships and have relationships with the kids that were there and talk to them and play games with them in a way that, like, they weren't interested in playing soccer with me, but they would play with Jakey. So that was really cool to be able to go all together as a family, and that's something that we look back on very fondly.
Yeah, so my first one was also as a youth leader, and it was just a student missions trip. And so I was just really excited to see the kids be able to serve a community in an area where, it was different than our own area and that sort of thing. And then just being there and seeing just how amazing the group of teenagers that we brought and just the willingness they had to serve others and do, the hard jobs, like standing on top of these tall ladders. I remember when Hannah, there's a picture somewhere of Hannah Post standing on top of a very tall ladder, like scraping paint off of the side of a building, and just see them doing it with just love and willingness. And it was just such an amazing thing. And I remember coming back and saying, I wish everyone in our church could see them serve the way they do, because a lot of times teenagers get kind of a bad rap, like they're lazy or they're this or they're that, but like to see them doing that, like it would be just so amazing that if everyone could experience that. And so then when we did start doing church-wide missions trips, like it was just such a joy to be able to work alongside other groups of kids and families and have other families be able to spend time with my kids and serve with my kids, as well as the kids that I was serving with in the youth group. So that was just a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and that's something that we've talked about quite a bit when we talk about planning these short-term missions trips, is that there is not, and one of the reasons why we did some youth-specific trips kind of back in the day a little bit, but we haven't done those in a while. We've done mostly family-oriented short-term missions trips, and we kind of have only done those because, kind of like what Kel was saying here, like seeing, like if she was kind of like, if you could see these students, like adults and youth and kids, like working and serving together in these settings, there's really nothing like it in terms of kind of both being able to see God using the giftedness in different ages and different stages of life for people, and also God, just for yourself on that trip, kind of seeing God use you in ways and stretching you in ways that you didn't think God could potentially use you and stretch you. And it's a totally awesome thing to be a part of. So with that in mind, like we're talking about how God works in the midst of these trips, there are ways that God works that are sort of encouraging and build us up. There are ways that God works that sometimes challenge us and we have to kind of fight through some discouragement or even difficulty as part of the trip. So what was your experience like? How did you feel God work to encourage you and challenge you as you've been a part of these projects?
So for me, one of the big challenges has usually been the time of year that we go and the places we go to, the weather. It is so hot and humid, and like you literally walk out the door and start sweating, and you have to get comfortable with being very sweaty all day. And then, potentially bugs. You remember our lovely bug event in Belize this past year. But anyway, so I think those have been some of the challenges and yeah, I think that's it for me. Go ahead. Oh wait, am I supposed to encourage now?
Sure.
Sorry, take it back. So encourage, just always, I have been blown away time and time again just by the sense of community in the places that we go to serve. When you go to places where are very different than our own homes and our own communities, and just see the love that the people have for each other and just the way they really care for each other. And then also to just spend time worshiping God in like a very different culture. It's just always an amazing experience.
So my challenge was the same as Kel. I know Deb loves this weather, but if this is as hot as it ever got, I would be a happy girl. So going to Haiti and Belize, where it's over 100 degrees, and Arizona, where it's, is Megan here? She had, I think it was double-digit bloody noses that she had in Arizona because it was so dry and so hot. And so yeah, just dealing with the weather is always fun. Encouraging, I remember very specifically in Haiti, them going to their church service, and first of all, just how far they would travel and walk and ways that they would get to church was encouraging. We just jump in our car and come and drive through Dunkin' and get coffee on the way here, but they're hiking with children on their back or whatever to get to where church is. So that's always challenging and encouraging when I complain about waking up early or whatever. But also, I remember very specifically in Haiti singing How Great Is Our God, and we were singing in English, and they were singing in Creole. Is that what it would have been? And it was just so cool. It was this moment of total unity. We were all singing and praising the same God, but in different languages in different ways. So that was encouraging.
It was really nice to see our kids play and interact with the kids their age, even if there was a language barrier. I was amazed by the incredible lunches that the women in Haiti prepared all morning for us and the kids. It was delicious, and it smelled so good. And it was, and during the time when we were serving the kids lunch, you stole my thunder, but that's all right. They played How Great Is Our God, the World Edition by Chris Tomlin, and it was just so amazing to hear the praises sung in different languages, and it was just, I just loved it, and ever since I just always thought of that song. Yeah, so there you go.
You didn't hear it, but you were mentioning ants with beef jerky up the wall. I'd love to hear that story later. So they were all mentioning heat. I know I enjoyed the weather, but I was getting a lot of texts that I was sweating too much. So there is a lot of sweating that goes on when you're down there. So Rachel Noddy makes sure that she wants to make sure you're hydrated. She felt I sweated too much. No, I feel like the challenge for me came into an encouragement. So when we were there, it took about 3 hours because we were in Belize. It took about 3 hours from the airport to get to where we were going. And as you're driving through, you get to see the whole country pretty much. And so it is either jungle or you get to see where the people are living in kind of the communities. And that was hard for me to see, kind of what they say with the idea of culture shock. And it was just, I was really struggling with that night. I was talking to Giselle on the phone and some different people. And I remember the gentleman, I believe it was the next day, Reuben, one of the missionaries with us, he actually challenged us and he said, don't look and think of what they don't have, think of what they do. And that question really kind of helped to change my focus. I could think there was the grandmother who, if you were to saw where she was sitting in the midst of what they would call homes, it would break your heart. But she's sitting there smiling, and she was so happy that she could see 40 plus grandchildren run in circles everywhere. And she was the happiest person just sitting there and delighting in that. The church, where the church was in the midst of this community. And I love that when they went to go worship, they opened up all the windows for everyone to hear. I mean, you couldn't hear anything in that community other than the worship and the preaching. So that was just interesting to be able to take that question and say, don't look at what they don't have, but look at what they do. And to see the ways God has been and is still giving them hope through his word and through that comfort in that little church there was pretty neat to see.
And I think you guys all, a thing that has been, as I've been involved in some of these short-term missions projects, that has been both an encouragement and a challenge to me, and I think all of you hit on this in one way or another. It's like you think about getting involved in short-term missions, and you can kind of almost have the mindset that you're like, look at me, look how good I am. I'm gonna be doing almost like doing people a favor by going and serving in some of these areas. But very quickly in these projects, I found that mindset in my mind, and I think in the minds of everyone who participated, challenged with the reality that God is already there in these places where we get to go and serve. And it's more of an honor for us to be invited into what God is already doing in these communities and partnering with people who are already doing the work of God and are part of the Great Commission in these areas, and we just get to be a part of it. And it drives home, it challenges that notion that I kind of approach missions with, but then also encourages me with the idea that that body of Christ is so much bigger than what our weekly, daily experience of it is. And it's such an honor and a privilege to be invited into it as we get to serve as part of these communities. So we're gonna jump ahead to our last question, because I know we got some, we wanna make sure that we get the worship team back up here and get our service moving on. But we've been talking about, as this, in this series, we're talking about this idea of recommitting to the Great Commission, recommitting to both our missionary partners, but also recommitting to the idea of the Great Commission here within our church. So how do you feel like being a part of a short-term missions project is connected to the Great Commission that Jesus gives us?
I mean, I don't have to go first, I just think. But okay, I think I'm going to read this one. But in some ways, short-term missions is not always about telling people about Jesus, as in the Great Commission says, but showing people Jesus in the way that we serve, to help support the missionaries that are on the ground in those communities every day, sharing Jesus with them. And I think a big part of the Great Commission in short-term mission is just the willingness to go part. Willingness to go to another culture, to take time to learn from them, to love them, to serve them, to allow your heart to embrace them, and in so doing, both understanding how best to tell and also earning the right to tell them about Jesus. It's not just the way you serve, but also in your words then.
I was thinking about making disciples, and I was thinking about how I have traveled with people who have discipled me, and then I've had the opportunity to travel with people that I've gotten to disciple, whether in youth group or with my own kids. And it's been really cool to be kind of a link in the chain of that. And then particularly with traveling with Bold Hope, getting able to go and do work there that is really supporting the ongoing mission. We're not just showing up and doing something that is, going to be forgotten and these people aren't plugged into a local church or anything like that. We're going and we're serving in a mission that's established, knowing that when we leave, there's people who are going to come in and continue to disciple them. So that discipleship factor was kind of what I was focusing on with this question.
I was just encouraged to see them being able to help with their basketball court and the mission that it is. They serve the kids with that, and how encouraging it is. They were very pumped up about it, and it was exciting to see. So it was really cool to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think of it in the sense of before you go, when you're there, and then even after. That idea of I'm only thinking of my experience with the kid, the boys, them preparing the letters, them doing the work to kind of say, to sit there and watch God work and move, and kind of, you're recommitting your whole family's mindset and hearts to something different more than yourselves. And then watching that transfer into the missions themselves, where you're like what you were saying, when we were on the trip, it was almost, what works for you guys? Mm-hmm. All right, so the time schedule isn't working. We didn't have a mindset of, hey, this is what we came to do, this is what we're doing. It was what works for you guys. So there's that recommitting of your mindset again. And then even afterwards, just coming home and kind of saying, okay, what am I going to do with what God's shown me? So I kind of just think of it through all those areas of just the heart and mind constantly being recommitted. I know it still stands out for even just my boys today, just even the conversations that they've had with Elgar or with Ruben and things like that. So watching that reshape their lives as they go on and watching them disciple the boys was pretty neat for me. So.
Well, I want to thank you guys all for your time, and I think one of the one of the consistent themes that I think I heard from each of their answers in terms of the Great Commission is that, you know, what we oftentimes when we were part of these projects, what we thought God wanted to do through us oftentimes ended up being very different than what our experience of that was. Whether that was from a schedule, whether that was from what job we were going to do, you know, what our experience was going to be like, how God was going to use us, what God wanted to do, oftentimes ended up being very different than what our preconceived idea of that was. So going into these projects, it was very important to have this attitude of surrender, like, God, whatever you want to do with this week. And something I think I'd like to encourage us all to do as we kind of head in throughout the rest of these next upcoming weeks and really throughout our lives is just to continue, not have that attitude of surrender just heading into a week-long project, but have an attitude of surrender as we head into these next weeks. We're going to be hearing from various missionaries. And there's going to potentially be ways that God might want to use you in ways to support their ministries, whether it's being a part of a short-term missions project, whether it's taking them on as personal support, whether it's being a part of one of their stateside efforts to support one of their projects. I consider you to prayerfully go to God with an attitude of surrender to say, God, what is it that you would have me do when it comes to missions and the Great Commission in the world? Because how I think you might want to be using me may actually be very different than how you actually want to use me. So having an attitude of openness and surrender to what God is going to be doing. There's going to be lots of opportunities, both in Sunday morning services and in other opportunities with each missionary as they come in to meet and get to know them. So please take advantage of that time together. They'll all also have opportunities for you to sign up on their newsletters to be able to be getting more information. And we'd love for you guys to just be staying in touch with them. And we will be having other short-term missions opportunities here at Grace Community Church in the future that you have the opportunity to be a part of. And we would love to have you join us for one of those opportunities. And some of you here in this room have been a part of those and can attest to how powerful those experiences have been. So thank you guys. You guys can head on down and we'll have the worship team come on back up and we will continue on with our service.